Hey everyone, welcome back to the Friers podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Andrew Crook, President of the National Federation of Fish Friers. While we actually recorded this last week with the Pod Squad team, we had a few technical issues, or hiccups as you call them. So what we did, we decided to re-record it and pivot it to a one-to-one format instead. I do think it would be good to get Andrew on a Pod Squad again in the future because, you know, if we ever have someone drop out, just get him in for a normal conversation, just chit-chat, because I think that's one thing we do miss hearing from Andrew, actually, that general just chit-chat we don't get from him usually because I'm too busy interrogating him. So Andrew has been a regular guest. You know, he first came on nearly 6 years ago, and for good reason. We always have engaging conversations about the industry, the fish and chip industry at large, really. With nearly 200 episodes now under our belt, it's amazing to think how far we've come since starting with our modest goal of just testing 5 or 6 episodes to see how it goes. Your support as listeners is vital as ever, along with incredible guests and hosts who have now joined us. I think it's really helped us build something special here. Nothing like it existed before, and nothing in this industry exists now that's like this either. Before we dive into today's discussion, here's a quick update. We've launched a Friers WhatsApp announcement group. It's a one-way channel for news, podcast releases, exclusive offers and competitions, just like our email really, but a little bit more informal. We don't really chat there, it's just a place to stay informed. You'll find the link in the show notes, so be sure to join us. It's worth joining even if you mute it, and then you can check it whenever you fancy looking back at articles we've done or podcasts that we've done or just special offers. And speaking of special offers, don't miss out this week's huge Black Friday special offer. It's a one-day only event, and trust me, you'll want to be on our WhatsApp group or mailing list to get all the details. The links will be in the episode show notes. If you're not on if you are on them and maybe it's in your junk box, go and check, but it's a huge offer. If you're not sure and you want to know what it is, give us a shout. A big shout out to today's sponsor, Friers P1 chip preparation formula, or we call it P1 internally and customers call it chip prep. This product is a game changer for anyone preparing fresh potatoes and chips, which is everybody listening to this, and lots of people that don't listen to this. The benefits extend from reducing excess starch, preserving the freshness, keeping your chips really dry, keeping your oil in tip-top condition. It's an absolute must-have for anyone that's serving amazing chips or wants to be serving amazing chips. Proudly made in the UK, it offers exceptional value for money whilst ensuring your customers get the best chips possible. Order now at www.friers.shop with free next day delivery across mainland UK. Trust us, your customers will notice the difference. And on a little note about our next day delivery, just if you have anything that's in your abandoned cart at the moment and you think, oh, I'll order it when I feel like it, order it as fast as possible. Stock is moving fast. So we do have, like, our stock rotation is really fast anyway, and it does get replenished quite quick. But do keep your eyes on it. If it's something you need, get it ordered. At Friers, we're not just about batter mix, we're here to support your business with premium products, insightful podcasts, expert advice, some good old deals and competitions whilst we're there. So let us know what is inspiring you right now. We're trying to, hear from listeners and people that we're serving. So let us know. We'd love to really know what's floating your boat and also what's not floating your boat at the minute. So enough of me. Let's jump into today's conversation with Andrew. How's it going, Andrew, mate? You all right?
Yeah, all good, all good. Busy, but yeah, keeping going.
Well, nothing wrong with being busy, is there?
No. Well, I like to be busy, but as I say, I opened a new shop this year, which was my first shop, so that's added an extra layer of issues. So I ended up with a consumer board burning out last week, so we were shut last Wednesday night and managed to get back open on Thursday. But yeah, all these things that are thrown at you to challenge you, aren't they?
Yeah, how is the new shop going aside from that?
Yeah, it's doing all right. It's doing better than it has done for the last few years. It's been bust twice in the last 2 years, so it was my first shop, and I bought it when with my graduate loan. So I kind of got a bit of an emotional attachment to it because I lived above it and it was my escape from my parents' house. I've gone full circle, so I'm back in the first shop and I'm back in the parents' house. So, but yeah, I just wanted to. I had the choice of either selling the building and letting it go or trying to do it myself. So I thought I'd give it a whirl. And it's a nice village and I like the people there. And it's it's just somewhere I love. So we'll see how it goes.
Do you see yourself juggling two shops forever, or do you see yourself sort of setting one up to rent out or sell the lease on the other one? Or
I think long term or medium to long term, I'll probably look to get out because on Sunday I'm 49. I've no kids. I've got a girlfriend now in Leeds, so I'm spending more time over there and having the shops are tight and less lucrative than they used to be. So you've got to question what you do it for sometimes. But I still love the industry. I still love working in the shops. I still love the banter with the staff and the customers. It's there's nothing else like it, and I'm very lucky with the original shops in a lovely village, and many of the customers have become friends as they do. I've got a great team, and then the new shop, a lot of people know me from when I had it 20 years ago, so it's nice working there as well. So at the moment I'm enjoying it, but we'll see. I've got my meeting with my accountant after this, so we'll see what he tells me. I might change my opinion.
He's going to tell you how rich you are. That's what he's going to do.
I doubt it. He'll tell me how much I owe the government, I'm sure. So
there's lots to be said about that government, isn't there?
I'm sure.
So, do you ever see yourself relocating to Leeds then?
Well, you put me on the spot there. I hope she doesn't listen. So yeah, maybe I do enjoy it over there. Where the girlfriend lives is up at northeast Leeds. It's a nice area. I shouldn't really say it it's today's Lancashire Day, so I shouldn't really say it. But I do like Yorkshire. It is nice, but I love where I live now, and so it's a big upheaval. So maybe I will, maybe I won't.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's one of those things, isn't it? You just got to. You just got to see how it goes, I guess. And if your new life is somewhere else, it doesn't really matter, does it? You just got to do what you got to do, for the best.
That's it. And there's a great Italian restaurant if you're ever up in Leeds called Franco's. Okay. So honestly, it's fantastic.
I'm writing it down.
So Thorpe Park. So definitely worth a visit.
Is it? It better not be cash only. All the restaurants I've been to in Leeds are cash only. It does my head in. Like, it really does. I went to a sort of like a Turkish restaurant once. Not with you, actually. It was another time. It was someone else, and with John George Alice, and we're having our dinner. Nowhere does it say cash only. Next thing you know, we'll go to pay. Oh, sorry, sir, no credit card machine. I have to go outside in like a February. It was freezing. Stand under a cash machine. And then I go back in, and I needed to go back and get more cash. I was so annoyed. It just does my head in. So
there's no need for it this day and age, is there? And I think the time's come to force every business to take cash and card because it'd make a big difference. And I think,
yeah, I'd agree with that. I think imagine just saying it stops the whole people. I think if the government was to mandate that every business took all payments, so card and cash, I'd probably not go as far as checks. I wouldn't force a check, but card and cash. If every business had to do both of those, then it stops the people that say, oh, cash only looks dodgy, but it also stops the people that say, oh, they're forcing us to be digital only. So it stops that argument. It just means that everyone can pay however they want to pay.
This day and age, the charges aren't that expensive. Well, if your turnover's high enough, you can get good rates, and I just think it makes sense. But I mean, there's a busy fish and chip shop I know that it's got a sign on the counter saying bank transfers only to an account type personal. It's
I've seen that
day
photo.
And age, surely.
I've seen that.
I'm sure you have.
I've seen that. But but I don't know how that works. I was thinking about this. I can barely move money around in my accounts without the bank ringing me up and saying, "What do you want to do with your own money?" So imagine actually seeing small transactions, because I guess chip shop is small transactions, coming through for your personal account. Oh, £12 here, £6 there. Surely the bank's going to be like, this ain't right. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it seems to work, and I know a lot of the Chinese takeaways do the same thing. And it's again, it does feel when you try and do everything right, it does feel like nobody's policing the system. That's the feeling you get, isn't it? So
Yeah, sorry, just moving my microphone there. No, I think it just feels weird, like that the banks pick up on the littlest things and then ignore the biggest things. It just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, it's no, I like Leeds, to be fair. There's loads of good restaurants, and I go there to meet customers all the time, and you know, it is a nice place. It's a nice part of the world. Lancashire, on the other hand, now I don't want to upset all the Lancastrians listening to this, but no.
Well, as I say, it's Lancashire Day, so you can't today. It's our special day, and it's not raining. I believe it is in Leeds, so we've sent it over the Pennines.
We used to have a guy that worked for us called Neil, who now works for Charlie. So I do feel for Charlie, and he's from Preston, and his family got business all over Preston, and but for years we'd just make fun of Preston. I'd never even been to Preston, and we'd just make fun of it purely because of the connection to him. And I remember once I was driving. I might have come to see you at one point, and I sort of just text him with a sign that says Preston, and then another photo with me holding my nose. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with Preston. I just like making the jokes to annoy him. So,
well, look, Preston's somewhere I probably wouldn't live again. My first house was just on the outskirts of Preston. But I've got a lot of family there. I don't know if you know, my great-grandmother had 26 children, wow. So there's a lot of cousins and second cousins there. So, yeah, I've still got a lot of ties in this area.
Didn't have tellies, did they?
No, as you were busy, she smoked a pipe as well. She probably needed to with all those kids, but there you go.
What, thinking of shops that go like cash only, like if they're members, where does that put you? Like as a trade organisation, like if you know they're sort of doing that. And you know what stance this government's taking? Where does that put you guys to some degree? Can you advise? Can you go a bit stronger? What can you do?
Well, if a member gets an investigation, and we can see obviously that they're definitely on the fiddle, it makes things more difficult. Obviously, you give them some advice, but there's only so far you can go. I was approached once by a guy who wasn't a member, just got in touch, and he was being taken to HMRC coming at him for about £850,000. But when we looked at it, he was using twice as many potatoes and twice as much fish as I was, and taking half or the same money. So that there's and all the reviews were his portions are very small. So you get all these kind of alarm bells. So there's only so far you can go, but we will always try and help a member to a certain extent. But we've got to look and I do take it quite serious that we've got to look at the future of the industry. And I've been saying for a long time that we can feel the pressures now that businesses are under pressure, and in this environment, there's a danger that the businesses that are trying to do everything right are either forced into breaking the law, or they're going to go out of business. And businesses that have all the staff off the books and no holiday pay commitments and the like have got a better chance of surviving. I think that's very dangerous, and it's something I've had conversations with MPs about, and it's very worrying. I was at the Bangladeshi Caterers Association Awards the other week, and I met an MP that's on the Treasury Select Committee, and it was 2 days before the budget. And from the conversation, I could see we weren't going to get much comfort in the budget, but I think we knew that anyway. But I don't think they have any understanding of the pressures that small businesses are under, and the nuances of certainly fish and chips, but smaller hospitality businesses. And UK hospitality do a great job, but they've got such a broad brush because they represent it. I mean, just look at the board. The board is made up of CEOs of pub chains and people from Burger King, and they can't know all the nuances of the fish and chip industry or the kebab industry.
But
I think that's a worry.
So I think there's a few things to unpack there. So one is if you're at the Bangladeshi Curry Awards, what was it again? Bangladeshi what?
Bangladeshi
Oh,
Caterers
okay.
Association.
So are they aware of like tax evasion in that sector? Because that must be rife. Like, I'm not being funny. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not just calling out. Like, that is a cuisine or a category of foods that does have a serious problem. Like, just like you said, the Chinese takeaways do. Like, and the Chinese takeaways don't have any association from what I can tell. So number one, like, what sort of conversations are they having behind the scenes? Because that's quite interesting. Like, are they aware of these things?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to people from different cuisines, and they've all got these kind of issues, and it's something that maybe larger businesses don't see. For them, fraud is probably managers embezzling money or staff taking money out of the till and that kind of level of fraud. And I think at our level of the industry, I think it's much different.
Yeah.
So they've all got the same pressures, they've all got the same concerns as we've got, which is why it's important that I continue to talk to all the heads of those organisations, and we're all saying the same thing, that small independent businesses need a voice, and at the moment we're not getting it.
So, but UK hospitality, like you mentioned that, and I'm just trying to think. Like, I did a bit of research because obviously listeners won't know this actually. Well, they may know this, but they may not. And if you listen to the first time, we did actually record a bit of a podcast with the other guys as a pod squad, but we had some technical issues. Well, you did.
Lancashire Wi-Fi. Exactly. No, it was actually the laptop were dying, but there you go.
But I wanted to do a bit of research, but I was looking it up, and then obviously I've had Kate on a lot of podcasts. So I've looked back at, like I have you, and I'd look at the transcripts, and 70% of their UK hospitality members are SMEs. UK membership, single site independent pubs, guest houses, cafes and restaurants. Larger companies in their membership often operate through franchises. Their SMEs, they also have them they have a council and board with them. So I don't know, like if they're the ones talking to government, then surely you're not better off having some sort of affiliation or conversation or something with UK hospitality, because if they are there talking to government, then, and if I'm right, didn't they support, fund and facilitate the British Takeaway campaign during COVID?
No. During COVID, the British Takeaway campaign was Just Eat, put the money in. Tony used to attend the meetings. Tony's great, and Kate's great. And as I say, they do a fantastic job. But a bit like the British Takeaway campaign, you've got Just Eat that are paying the money into it. So to a certain extent, you end up having to... You're lobbying. It's good to have smaller businesses there lobbying. So for their membership, when they're talking to government, it's great to have small businesses as members of UKH.
One thing I've noticed is that there is a huge difference between the takeaway sector, which we are, and the hospitality sector. I think that I do think we sort of fit under there, but we do have different needs. I think that's clear to whereas the listeners do. They have different needs to like a restaurant and so on. But I don't know. I just think if they're the ones talking to government, then surely some sort of deal needs to be struck to also get in front of those people. Does that make sense?
Well, we've got a meeting with Minister Madders on Wednesday next week. So Stuart Devine, who's now Vice President of the NFFF, in that meeting. Yeah. So we do get the ear, and it's important. That I said to the MP from the Treasury Select Committee, I said, it's great that you speak to UKH because they'll outline a lot. They've got a lot of power. They've got a lot of influence. But you need to speak to people that are involved in lower down takeaways or lower down in the hospitality sector, because we've got different needs. We've got different pressures. We've got, a lot of our needs are aligned, but some of them aren't. And we want government to get it right. We want to work with them. Whoever's in charge, we want it to work because we all benefit if government get it right and get the economy working right. And I think the government think they're getting all the information, but maybe aren't. And it's important that they reach out to other organisations and get their side, because otherwise they're only getting part of the picture. And as I say, a large chain, it's useful for them to have smaller businesses that they can say they're working for, if you know what I mean, or that we're representing the smaller businesses. But ultimately, the large chain has a lot of influence on what direction or what they ask government for. So I think business rates will be a bigger problem for the large pub chains than it is for takeaways. We've done a survey and about 50% of our members are affected by business rates, whereas a large pub chain with 1,000 venues is obviously going to be more affected by it. So, it's those kind of things that might get missed, and there's a danger that smaller businesses don't get the voice heard. And I think it's important that government listen to us. I mean, I said to this MP, there was a lot of talk about what defines a worker. I said to her, well, last time I looked, I was working on Saturday night, and I said, I bet you weren't. We're definitely, as business owners, we're workers, and I've been thinking about it, and I think definition of a worker could potentially be somebody who's entitled to holiday pay, because that would clear it up, but that would also show that business owners are maybe second-class citizens in the eyes of the government. We've not got the same rights, because we are definitely affected by the budget. With all the other pressures, with certainly fish and chips with the price of fish, and that's going to continue for a while. I'm sure we'll come on to that. We've got a lot of pressures at the moment. We're going to have an increase which affects businesses. The national insurance affects businesses in different ways depending on your mix of employees, the number of employees. So for myself, I think it's about £15,000-20,000 a year extra I've got to find. For other businesses, I've spoken to somebody, it's £450,000 a year. So that business is now looking, do we do a refit? Do we not? Do we keep hold of that money? So there's less money being spent in the supply side of the business. And I think government have missed an opportunity for growth. Hopefully we'll get that next year, but it's going to be a tough winter for us all. And they made those decisions without talking to the smaller businesses. They might have spoken to UK Hospitality. They are reaching out now, but before the budget, we didn't hear from them. I wrote to Jonathan Reynolds, and I got a letter back from the comms department, from the Department of Business, which I thought was very poor.
See, one of the things worth noting is that previous to this, all organisations, not just you, every one of them, probably thought, oh, this Conservative government... I think really it's better to say government, really, but it was a Conservative government. They were like, oh, they don't care. Although, looking back on it, especially during COVID, that government did more than any other government for hospitality, and obviously takeaways. They kept a lot of businesses in business. And this isn't a who's better or who's not. It's just that this is what happened while they were in power. But I think towards the end, a lot of people thought, yeah, they don't care about hospitality. So a lot of people then fast forward and think, yeah, new government, they care about hospitality. And then post-budget, we're all back to square one again. They don't care about hospitality. Is it just because they just see it as... does anybody care about hospitality? I don't mean it like, do they care? I mean, is it just so low on the pecking order that they've just got other things to balance?
I don't think it's that, because we do tug on the nation's heartstrings. People do love takeaways. They do love hospitality businesses. So I don't think it's that. I think they just don't understand. When I talk to MPs, they're keen to learn, but they don't understand, and they need to talk to people. The only way they're going to learn about it is by communicating and listening to us. I've had many comments. I met with Kevin Ollinrake before, I think it was back in March, before the election was announced. And he comes from a estate agent background, but he didn't understand what goes on in this sector. And he was quite surprised. And I think that's the issue. They need to talk to us. We want to get it right. We want them to get it right, because it's about the future of the industry. I've no children, so I'm not passing my business on to family. But I do care about the industry. I put a lot of my life into it, and I want to see this industry thrive and the independence of it thrive.
Did you listen to the episode that I did with Kate?
I didn't.
It's probably worth listening to. And contrary to popular belief, ears work while you do other things, so you can have it on your earphones. But the one thing she said is, and I completely agree, and I suspect you will too, is that your members need to be talking to their local MP. That it can't just sit there saying, just all the crap you get, a lot of people get. Like she gets on Twitter, like, you don't do anything. Has this person emailed their local MP? No. Have they rang them and invited them around for a coffee? No. Have they done anything to inform them? No. Okay. And we're all sitting there saying, well, they don't do anything. Well, so I think, how hard is it for you to get your members to go and tell their local MP, this is what's going on, rather than waiting for the MP to miraculously find out what the hell's going on? They're not going to go seek information they don't need to. They're just going to sit there and say, well, no one's told me, because it's easy, and especially when there's conversations like, I don't know, assisting dying bills and all of this. Like, they're not going to sit there and say, oh, well, hospitality's going through a tough time. They're not. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? Like,
well, at the moment, it's all about farmers as well, which obviously we support the farmers in because they're affected not just by the national insurance, but the inheritance tax is going to affect some farmers. And again, that was done without consultation. But So now's probably we'd get drowned out at the moment. But I do think we have done it in the past. We've put letters together for members or given members key points to write to their MPs, showing them how to reach out to them.
But prior to the election, you would go into all these meetings, Labour meetings. Like, and if you don't mind me saying, you are a little bit left leaning. You're from Lancashire, so And if
I did get accused of being a Tory during COVID.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Chancellor, so there we go.
Who called you that?
Ralph,
oh well, yeah, he was oblivious on this one, on that one, because it's clear, and if anyone follows you on Facebook, you've never really, it's a personal thing, you've never really kept it a secret, and why should you? It's fine, but do you were talking to a lot of organisations, a lot of their subcommittees, subgroups, going to all of those, they were all saying the right thing. And then, like now, do you sort of feel a bit like, and I asked this question to Kate, do you almost feel like you've been gaslit to some degree?
Yeah, well, there's a little bit, as I say, I wrote to Jonathan Reynolds and I got quite a generic letter back from the comms department, which I didn't think was good enough. As I said, we've got a meeting with Justin Madders next week, who I have actually met at an event
are they actually
last
going
year.
to listen, or is it going to be, we've got this 40 billion black hole, da, 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 da. Do you get what I mean?
Well, that's politics. Yeah. They do listen. It's whether you get any results, and I think we've got to be realistic. The chances of a reduction in VAT are extremely slim. Extremely slim. You'll have to excuse there's some building work going on at the side of me.
If you don't mind me saying so, as much as I support it, I think it's I think it's almost, you could write it off. I've supported that. I published letters for people to send to their local MPs, and optimism's great. But are we looking too far down the line? Should we be looking at lots of lower hanging fruit? I just think government, especially this government, not being funny, they are not going to, if they're going on about how hard it is and et cetera, I don't see them lowering VAT ever, in actual fact, ever. And actually, from what I'm seeing, from a lot of the questions that got sent to me after I posted that you were coming on, the questions I got sent to me was, what is your stance on, or at least how are you pushing the evasion side of it? Yeah, that seemed to be more important to the people that were messaging me, and also we did a couple of podcasts with Les Howard, who's a VAT specialist, and I got so many questions after talking to him, and a lot of people almost think that 20%. Lowering it from 20% is a pipe dream, that it's not going to happen, and obviously it's nice to be optimistic, but in their minds is, why don't government go after people that aren't passing on the right amount? How do you get that message across? I know you're speaking about it a lot more lately, what's changed in your thinking as well?
Well, I can probably guess some of the people that emailed into you, to be honest. There is an element of organised crime that's involved in it. They do move into other sectors as well. I think Turkish
that's true to some degree. There is an element, but also a lot of people.
There's also that then puts you at a personal risk. And one of the managing directors of one of the chains of fish and chip shops was going to do a story, and it was prevented from doing it because of his chairman didn't want him to risk himself.
If I'm honest, mate, I get that. And I'm not saying you should put your neck on the line. We don't want you getting.
But you always will do, because you're always getting people that'll ask you to put your neck on the line.
But that means you can't do anything. That means you.
No, it doesn't. It just means you don't.
But if you think,
means you can work
organised crime is organised crime. Crime is crime. What a lot of these people that have messaged me are saying, that it is just the regular shop down the road from them who is doing it. And that could be hearsay, but they're not criminals. Well, at least they are in the eyes of the law, actually. But, they're just another shop down the road.
They're not, but the fuller picture is there is a risk there. And that's why that person, I agreed to do the story with him. I agreed to do the story with him, but he was prevented from doing it. I've had conversations behind the scenes with HMRC came to see me. I was interviewed under caution. So they understand how it works in this sector, because I had to tell them I was under caution. And it went up the chain. Who knows what level it reached, maybe minister level, maybe just top civil servants. And it came back with delaying techniques. And it was quite obvious that there was no desire to actually tackle it there. Whether that's because government like a little bit of the black economy and the money gets spent.
I bet it does, yeah.
I've no idea, but for me that was quite disheartening, because they'd come to me and then they don't do anything about it. And I know people who have shops that have been refused finance because they've no staff on the books, and they're driving around in supercars. I know firsthand. It goes on up and down the country, and for me, that's a bigger issue, and that's what government should be focused on. I totally agree. And maybe if we get that further down the line, there might be a conversation about how they can support the industry better with a lower rate of VAT. We're not going to get down to 5%. We might get somewhere in between, because it does make sense. Or, again, it's the media. If you remember the pasty tax, the amount of slating the government got at that time with the pasty tax putting VAT on pasties. But I think they need to look at supermarket ready meals, because what's the difference between nipping in a takeaway and getting a meal, or nipping in a supermarket, banging something in the microwave for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and you've got a hot meal as well? And I think that's something else they could explore, but it's not going to be popular. So it's whether they're brave enough.
And the answer is no, they're not, because they have a majority, and they didn't do anything that was remotely brave in their last budget, except for piss off everybody at once. That's the only thing.
I'd agree with that.
That's the only thing they unanimously did. And for those people that weren't Labour voters, the only thing they were sort of happy about, in a way, is that Labour had a majority and thought, well, actually, let's see if they actually do make change. I did a really good podcast with a business rate specialist, and he said business rates are an absolute mess, and he said, but if Labour gets in with a good majority, they'll start it from scratch. And did they? No. We did the podcast after the budget, and he was so disappointed. He goes, they've absolutely squandered a majority. And I think he was a Labour voter too, but he's not even looking at it like that. He's looking at it from his professional point of view. And he said they have absolutely squandered it, because if you don't make those changes in year one, you can't then look and tweak it on year 3 before the next election. And he goes, so they've missed the chance. They're not doing anything. And what have they...
I agree.
And what they've done, essentially, they've proposed to tax the bigger... increase business rates on the bigger sites again. And I know a lot of listeners won't like this, but really what probably needs to happen with business rates, and it goes back to everybody paying it. And that includes the local chip shop, the local bakery, everyone, but at a lower rate. But what's happened is, as you keep taking people out of the paying pool, someone else has to pay it, because they still need that money to come in. And I think they just use it as another wealth distribution tool. It's just, for a lot of talk that Wetherspoons get, that they're terrible for the town centre, but they're probably one of the only few businesses that prop up a town centre, So I don't, unfortunately, this government, in my opinion, and it's only an opinion because I'm not some clever economist or anything, but I do feel like they've squandered this real good chance they had. And I know they can say, oh, well, but we found this black hole, and all of it's imaginary. They had the majority to do what they wanted. And
I agree. As much as I'm not a Trump fan, when you listen to him, there's not a lot of sense comes out. But I think what he's doing is probably the right thing. I think he's bringing people in that'll shake it up, isn't he?
Both those two things can't be right. You can't say he talks gibberish and then say he could do good things. If you listen to what he says instead of what the media says and read transcripts, because I think what the media does, and they do it over here too, they've done it to Rishi Sunak before, they'll do it to Keir Starmer now, because it's what the media are fooling us all to some degree. But they give you a little portion of what he said, instead of actually, here's the 3 minutes before and here's the 4 minutes after.
But it was victory speech. He said, well, I don't need to write a speech, I can do it off cuff, and he just bambles on. That's what I was talking about. But the changes he's making are what we probably needed, which is bringing industry leaders in to shake things up.
This is the risk for this government. And I think that if they genuinely do well over there, across the pond, and this government actually just does what Europe does, which is legislate, people did vote for a mandate, whether we like it or not. They did vote to leave Europe. So if we do copy what Europe does and over-legislate things, we're going to get sick of it over here. And I can see them being a one-party government. You don't enact growth by taxing things and legislating things. That's just a fact. I'm not even Milton Friedman. Do you know what I mean? I can tell you that much. So I do worry for this government. But then I care more for the population than I do the government. Yeah. So it does mean that the other guys need to pull their finger out and get sorted. But again, this is all by the by. I wonder, it tells you what sort of state of affairs we're in when this government says, oh, we're going to have a department for government waste. and we're creating a department which needs funding with a person who works 1 day a week. And you think, come on, like, this is ridiculous. Like, the way to cut government waste is to actually get rid of crap. Like, seriously. Like, and I do think this government is not going to do that. I just do not see it. And look, Labour's not known for cutting back. They're known for emboldening government. So it'd be interesting to see. But you did work hard, and before, and in hindsight, could you have done anything different looking back?
Probably not. Got in front of people, spoke to them at events as well. I work with Ibrahim Douglas, who runs SME for Labour as a Kebab Alliance. Work very closely with Ibrahim. I'll probably see him next week.
So he's got good contact
in Labour,
but he's very pro-Labour. Like, he actually campaigns for them. Like, how must he be feeling right now? Like,
I'll find out next week. I've not seen him for a few weeks.
I've tried. Like, I'll say it openly. I've emailed him like 3-4 times, try to get him on the podcast. He's never responded once. Whether I've got the right email or what, I don't know. But like, in my mind, like, it baffles me how you can still be pro this and pro business. I don't know how those two things go hand in hand. Like, and I do wonder, like, how does this government ever give any sanctions to hospitality, tourism? Well, maybe tourism is slightly different, but hospitality or takeaway foods or whatever you want to call it, when they've also got a health problem on the other side with NHS. So I don't really see how they end up doing that, to be honest. I actually see them increasing the pool base of VAT, and actually I'll probably go one step further than you. It probably ends up going to like sandwiches and stuff like that, to be honest, because I can make a sandwich at home, and that is value added is right there. I just never see them lowering it ever, to be honest.
Again, though, leveling the playing field does help us, and it's about that fairness, isn't it? And at the moment, it feels very unjust because there's people evading it, and there's people that aren't in the scope of it, and you're competing against those, and it's so difficult.
But I've spoken to Paul Goodgame on this podcast numerous times, so just by saying his name, you know where I'm going next, and it's double invoicing. Like, what stance can NFFF take to try and influence that, getting rid of that?
Well, that's one of the things that HMRC asked us about, so they know exactly what happens, and they know. But the companies that do that aren't breaking the law in their eyes.
They are, though. They are, because if you're adding software to your computer to split bills, that's activity to create fraud. So
I imagine that they've got a record where everything goes, because I'm sure they will.
So why do it then? It's all pretend then, isn't it, if that's the case?
In the eyes of the customers, I think the problem is that if one of the suppliers stops doing it, then they lose the customers that want that facility to another supplier. So that's why it needs legislation, and that's one of the conversations I had with HMRC. And I have spoken to the suppliers as well, and that's their big fear. And I think it does create a lot of work from at the ground level. One, picking up cash is dangerous. They don't like that. Handling cash, the hassle of doing the split invoicing is a hassle in the depots, but it's something that is just always been there, and it's something I think it needs legislation to sort out. And even then, you'll still get a man with a van. But
Les Howard,
you can follow.
But if you listen to the podcast with Les Howard, he makes it clear it is against the law. Like, there's no legislation that needs enacting. It is against the law. There is. So I get what you're saying, which is it needs legislation, but the legislation exists. It's already there. Like, it is illegal.
But again, that's what HMRC didn't enact on, because they've had it. I'm sure they've not just spoken to me about it, but they came to us, and it was back in November 2021, and nothing's changed since then. And it's not that I was pushing for the change, although it would suit me. And I think it's the right thing for the industry, because if we don't get it, the industry is going to lose a lot of good operators that just get frustrated, the ones that provide decent jobs. And it's just the same as the new workers' rights. The one, I said this to the MP I'm at, the one section of employment that it doesn't help is people working cash in hand, because they have no rights at all. I was on 5 Live, and I said that on there. But, again, it's something that the people that are trying to do everything right will have more of a burden than the ones that flout the law. And that can't be right. And that's what government need to talk to us about. They need to help us try and shape the laws and the policing of the laws, so that it gives those that are trying to do everything right the best chance of survival. They can't save every business, but they've got to make it fair so that everyone can survive on their own volition. And I think in the past, government has seen it as a natural attrition of businesses, but that's not the case, because it's not the weakest, the bad businesses that are going. It's people that are hitting brick walls and sick of feeling like a pelican, to quote Blackadder, and having a big bill in front of you everywhere you turn. And that's what it feels like running a business and trying to do everything to the letter of the law. And
that's a modern slavery issue. We move away from, and that's why people just need to know what's what. And here's the other, the joke of government is that they bring out all these modern slavery laws. They tell you there's a new department of modern slavery, and then they underfund it. And that's every government. I'm not just blaming the last one; it's this one too. Whereas really, you don't need a modern slavery department if the other department that existed previously just did its job right. Simple. Why do we need another department? Oh, great, there's no one there. So, you probably they do say that example that you gave, that falls under modern slavery. So you'd email the modern slavery department. I'd be surprised if anyone gets a response. Just send them an email later and see. I bet you don't get a response. So
No.
And now here's the other problem. They're giving us more laws. Yeah, so more employment laws. One of the questions that one of the listeners sent in to us is Andrew putting any resistance to day one sick pay in conversations with government officials. And so they're going to give us more employment laws that we need to jump through from day one. They'll probably scale back a little bit and then say, oh, we did you a favour. But the fact is, can you imagine what a pain in the rear this is? And remember, fish and chip shops are just local businesses. They don't have, a HR department. There may be one person that deals with it if you're a couple, but like you don't have someone. So how do you navigate that headache?
Well, it's a nightmare, isn't it? And I think it'll create more cashing on work, employment. I think you'll find a lot of employees where they split the wages between through the books and cash. And again, that if government talked to us, we could tell them that's going to be the impact, and they need to reach out, because we do know what the potential risks are for what they're going to bring in. But yeah, I mean, it is challenging. During COVID, the majority of the shops that stayed open in my area, fish and chip shops, were the ones that paid the staff cash in hand, because they couldn't furlough them, so they carried on going. And I remember seeing police in one of them on Facebook on Good Friday with 7 people behind the counter. I'm thinking, well, this is great, isn't it? It goes on everywhere, and I think the new legislation is going to drive more people to it, because they'll do it. I've always said a business is a bit like an animal; it's got its own life, and it'll do anything to survive. And I think that's what will happen. The owners people will flout the laws just to survive,
Yeah.
and it's either that or going bump.
And one of the themes that kept cropping up, like when questions were coming in, was talking of evasion. Let's say it's like, should entering the awards, should you be disqualified if you find out a shop's fiddling? Should NFFF take a harder stance on fiddlers? Not kiddie fiddlers. Well, probably should on that too, to be fair. So, do you understand my thought process there? What these people are saying?
If the court operating fraudulently, they would be removed from the process. It's actually in the application form. We also asked if they take cash card as well as cash, not for any other reason than often it does imply that there might be something issue. They're not judged on it, but it's just something that's there. So it is something that's built in. We do take it serious, because it is about the future of the industry, and the awards are certainly about that. That's why it's such a robust process, because it's not just about promoting the shops that enter and promoting fish and chips and making money out of it, which a lot of awards run for. We run it for, I don't get paid for doing it. Leslie, Josette Foster, Caroline doesn't get paid for it. We do it for the good of the industry, and we want to raise standards. So that's why we've got such a robust process, and that is part of it. Making sure that what would it look like if we had a winner that then further down the line are prosecuted.
I'm sure it's probably happened over the years.
I'm sure.
And I'm sure it will happen one day in the future. You can't stop everything, but I just think that it seems like a real, and it's probably not, but because we're in this industry, it does feel like it's this industry's problem. It's probably an industry. It's probably a problem for pubs. It's probably a problem for restaurants. It's probably a problem everywhere else. But only people see it from the inside of that business, Whereas we're inside this business and we see it from this industry. I've got no dog in the race. We don't. We've got a website. We take payments up front. One of our biggest complaints actually is the fact that we can't do cash sales and won't do cash sales. So it's not something I've ever wanted to do. I don't like having to chase people for money. My website, you order it, you pay, you get it. So payment comes before the getting. So we actually have no chasing of money. So well, you could argue. You could probably argue I do have a dog in the race because it would make it fair. I'm trying to be neutral. Yeah. So you probably could argue I have got a dog in the race, but I just feel like the many people that emailed me, not about this, not just this podcast, but the one that I did with Les Howard as well, like the frustration that's coming from those people that are every day trying to do, one was from your neck of the woods, and just genuinely trying to do a really good job, and worried that the shop down the road is undercutting them and still making a living, and not just undercutting by 10p, we're not talking just being competitive, that's fine, but this is like 50p, 60p, a pound on fish and chips, So it's hard to make a living when they can still do that and make a living. And I can see where that frustration comes from.
I've got the same problem around my shop. So, I totally get it. And it's something that needs to be sorted because, as I say, it's the businesses that look after their employees. They're at the biggest risk and it can't be right. And, I think that's a good argument for government because it's about the employees and making sure they've got rights as well. And, we all know shops... My shop's surrounded by them that probably don't do the same thing. So I do care about my staff, and I take it very seriously that when I take a young person on, I want to nurture them, and you do try and help them. Some take it longer to get it than others, but often it's the first job or one of the first jobs, you don't want to start them off with a failure. But I totally agree that it's something that. There wasn't, unless somebody's prosecuted, it's difficult to prove somebody's up to no good. But we will take a hard line on them.
I do think, though, I want to be fair on this government as well, to be fair. There is probably something in the background that's bubbling away that could be good, and that is this whole getting people back to work thing, people that are on benefits. That could squeeze staff that are currently getting cash in hand. That could squeeze them, say, look, whoever your boss is, John, Fred, Bob, I can't do this no more. I'm going to lose this, and this. I'm going to lose the house I live in. I need to be on the books. And that might force them from the other side. So that I'm keeping my eyes on that because that could be what actually makes that shop owner think, well, I can't do this no more because I've got 4 of these women. Because I know it sounds horrible, but it's usually women do the lunch times. Mostly women that work in fish and chip shops at that age, and kids are usually at school or whatever. And it might be, well, I can't do this no more. I need to show enough to put them on the books. And now my wages have gone up because they were 8 or 9 quid cash in hand, and now they're going to be, what is it, 12.20? Is it? Yeah, 12.20 on the books. So, but it's amazing, how, even the other day on the groups, I saw someone put, I've been advised that I need to give staff contracts, and I'm like,
I saw that, yeah.
What the hell? And I'm not mocking the person. I feel bad that they still think that it's advisory. I
think the problem is, though, people are in the business. If you've been in a business for 10 years and you've had quite a challenging time, you don't keep up to date with. People don't read emails, so we send emails out. We've got a great HR support service now. I mean, this one is really fantastic, and it's underutilized at the moment. So we're having a big push because further down the line, it's included with membership, and further down the line, it's going to benefit you because you will hit a problem because the world's going more and more that way. But it's so difficult for small businesses to keep up to date with it, which is why organisations like ours are important. And we've probably not been fantastic at it over the last few years. We've had a lot of challenges ourselves, but that's definitely our area of focus. We've got a new website coming, which I've told you about before, which has been a long process, but it's getting very close.
What's been the delay on that? Because you did mention it a couple of weeks ago, and you mentioned it when we did the last podcast in April or March. I can't remember. We spoke last, and You do get a lot of Sarah's time, I was looking back all the transcripts I've got of our conversations, so you get lots of airtime. But no, tell us why it took so long. Like, what's the delays been? Because I've set up a few websites in my time with companies that I've paid, and never have I had this sort of delay.
No, it is a fairly sizable website. I think if I introduce you to the web developers, they tell you themselves that they've probably delayed it a little bit. We've not been able to push them. We're busy with everything else we do. But it's almost there. It's just basically now the ball's back in our court, but it's having the time to sit. I spent yesterday working on it with Charlie in the NFFF office, so we're getting very close. But it's just one of those things, resources, to be honest, because we try to do a lot of things and we've not got that many people.
Yeah, well, we're going to get onto that, aren't we? But so tell us a little bit about what users or members, even non-members, what could they expect from the new website?
Well, the new website, the news we brought back into it, one of the problems with the old website, it had a content management system in the background which was very clunky in my opinion, and it was very difficult for board members or anyone that's not using it all the time to put stories on or put stories on from your mobile. So we've gone for a WordPress based one, which is more industry standard. I'd say you probably use WordPress for your website. We used to.
No, I was just thinking we used to, and it was fine though. I never had any problems with it. From a content point of view, it was better for a content point of view than it was in e-commerce. I still use lots of websites now that use Woo. Well, it's WordPress WooCommerce, and I use them and they're fine. They do the job. I can tell the difference now because the way that they look, the receipts look, and everything. Because we used it for a while. But I've always found it from a content point of view, it's a better experience, WordPress, because it's made for content, whereas it's not made for e-commerce. So, I'm surprised.
It's also more updatable as well. So, I mean, obviously, my background with programming, so I can program if I
I'm surprised that you struggled using WordPress for content.
No, I didn't. Sorry. The old website wasn't WordPress,
it wasn't
and that's
WordPress.
Part of the problem.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
It was extremely clunky the way it was set up. So.
But the new one is WordPress backend.
The new one's WordPress. So we've got learning management system on there, so we can put modules online, which will help us help upskill members. Obviously, the news will be more updated because it's easier for us to put stories on.
So, like at the moment, you've got like 4 or 5. Well, is it 3 or 4 different websites at the moment? Do you see them all becoming this, or do you still keep them?
No, the Friers review will just redirect to the news on this website. So it was always the trying to get more content out there. Basically, that's what we were trying to do by having a separate website. But no, we'll get rid of that. The QA that might stay because it's quite a big website. There's quite a lot of forms in the background, so I might bring it across at some stage. But for now, it's about getting it launched. But we've got member benefits that we're putting in, which are not just for the members, but also benefits for their employees as well. So there's discounts, so it's perks kind of thing. So that's coming in. We've got the deal with Amazon. We can promote the associate members a little bit better because we can highlight certain offers they want to offer directly to members. So and then there's some of the functionality as well.
Realistically, then, genuinely, like, don't just say tomorrow. Like, when do you think it will go live? And like, give yourself a bit of fat, build yourself a bit of fat into this. Go on.
I'd like to think the beginning of the year, because we've got Christmas coming up, so it's going to be a busy time. And also, I've got a few things coming up as well the next few weeks.
Would you not be better off just saying, let's just do it after the awards? Because then...
Well, maybe launch it at the awards, which that could be a good
I just think, do you want it to clash? Do you want it to clash is what I'm thinking. Like, but yeah, like, I don't know, I just think, so beginning of the year. So that's the answer.
Let's see if we're talking again in February and it's not there. So, no, it will be
look, I think because a lot of people are sort of just waiting for it now. I don't think they're all like, don't get me wrong, they're not holding their breath, but I just think it's been mentioned that many times now that it's like, okay, so when is it coming? Like, and that's why I didn't. So when we were building our website, we never said there was a new one coming, ever. The whole point was that we had the old website working away, which was fun. We actually updated it. I remember like we'd invested £1,000 roughly into our old website a month before we were doing the new website. And that was purely because you couldn't function without it. It needed to be done. And everyone, I remember afterwards, was like, what, you're doing another one and you're still using that one the same way? And I was like, it needed to be done. And the only issue we had at the end, and I think it might still be an issue now, I'm not even sure, but the only issue we had in the end was a security issue with forwarding. We did everything right, but on that one thing, GoDaddy just messed up with it and they couldn't do anything. So it just meant we had to go a bit more aggressive than we thought they were going to go. And but forwarding's a pain in the arse anyway. But it is, it is just what it is. But I do think that's why probably you would have been better off being prudent, not saying anything until the new one was done, and then do what you do with the old ones, direct them to the new one or whatever, and then be like, oh, it's new, and then talk about it. Like,
I'd have probably been better doing it myself, to be honest, because I could have worked on it myself easier. You're waiting for developers all the time, and then you're pushing back to developers. It does take time. So in hindsight, I'd have probably done that. But
without being rude, maybe it's the development team that aren't very good, because I've used a lot of web people, and I've never really had that problem. To be fair, they've always been quite on it. And but like you say, if you're under resourced as well, then that's never going to help, is it? Going forward. Like you're talking about resources, it's hard. You've lost Leslie, you've lost Josette. I don't know about John Penaluna. You said that Ryan's coming in. Stuart's moved into vice president. What's Caroline doing?
Treasurer.
Treasurer. Okay. So, firstly, how do you replace the people that you've lost, because you're already short on deck? So, what do you do there?
Well, Leslie and Josette are carrying on working on the awards. They do a fantastic job on it.
But that finishes in Feb, doesn't it? And then what?
Yeah, but no. But there's a feedback, and they said they're carrying on with the awards, and they're going to carry on with the quality accreditation as well.
Indefinitely.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I think they enjoy the process, and I enjoy working with the great people. So hopefully they will do. We need to strengthen the awards team, which is difficult because, and strengthen the board as well, because with taking the awards on, we've made a rule that nobody can enter any of the categories if they're on the board. So you've got to find people that have finished doing the awards and also have the time to come onto the board. And we're very lucky that Ryan said he'd join us this year, and we had a first meeting on Monday, and he was absolutely fantastic, a breath of fresh air, which is what we need. And the door is open. We've still got space to co-opt 2 people on this year. So if anyone wants to get involved, just get in touch. It's an open door, and the more people, the merrier. We can also have subcommittees, so people that aren't actually ready to make the step to come onto the board can help on certain areas. So we'd appreciate any help, because we all do it because we care about the industry. It's not anything other than that. And the more hands make light work, as they say. So the door is open. But the awards have been more of a challenge than we anticipated, because we did run a ball which was 350 people, and going to an awards which used to be 550. Last year was 660, 670. We thought, well, all right, there's going to be more ticket sales and more organising, but it won't. But the actual process of the awards, the judging, and the fact that we try and improve it each year, it's a massive job. And we've breathed life into the awards now. We've got it back on its feet, and I think the next stage is maybe going to the supply side to set up a sector panel such as they used to have in the past with Seafish, because I do think they are stakeholders in the industry, and I think their input would be valuable, and get some past winners on there as well.
I'm still ambivalent about the fact that I am an associate member. I support it, and I pay it. I genuinely don't get a lot for it. Like I'm not. That's not a slight. I'm just saying I do it more supportively because there isn't much there to get back. But I think, if I'm right, and I said this in episode 2 with you in 6 years ago, give or take. I still think that having normal shop members and associate members just creates a huge problem for you, because you can't represent them both. It's impossible. You just can't. And actually, my needs, going back to let's say your thoughts on UK hospitality earlier, my needs as a Ceres is different to John's Chippy. Very different. And I worry about the influence. I probably wouldn't have a board for associate members personally. I just don't see the.
It's for sponsors, not for associate members.
Or whichever it is. Yeah, but again, sponsors' needs are very different to shop entrants, and I do worry. And I've said this isn't a new thought process. I've thought it since we spoke in whatever it was all those years ago. If you just focused on shop members only, then you've got only shop members' thoughts in your mind, nothing else.
But that's what we do. Associate membership really is their opportunities to support us and get in front of the members, it's probably got the wrong title. It was brought in. It was Arthur Parrington back in the day that came up with the idea way back in the past, and it was brought in by him. And I agree with you. But when we're representing, go back to the cost of living crisis, I got a lot of flack from the supply side for saying things that more or less every organisation saying, including UKH, that there's going to be a lot of shops fail, and the line I was taking was over the next 5 years, and I think it'll speed up, and with all the things that are going on, and that's probably what will happen. And obviously, I didn't know what was going to come with government, but I knew.
But how many shops have failed?
Pressure.
Realistically, genuinely, how many shops have failed?
I think. Who knows? Because nobody has that data.
Right.
But there's definitely shops.
But this is the problem, isn't it? Saying something like shops have failed and then saying we don't have the data. I'm not convinced the number's strong enough. I'm genuinely, I'm not just trying to be argumentative.
Talking to suppliers. If you talk to the suppliers, I think your client base is probably different because, one, you don't offer cash sales, and you have got quite a lot of the long established and good businesses on your books, but talk to suppliers, volume's down.
Yeah, volume is down. That's a different thing, though, isn't it? So
but also I know in the shop I've opened up, I think he was taking something like £300-400 a week at one stage. And I'm not saying it's all down to the environment, but some of it is.
But you're not taking £300-400 a week, are you?
But it's not taking enough to survive at the moment.
Yeah.
So will it survive? I don't know.
So
that's
the thing is, I think just saying though shops are closing doesn't account for the fact that the many that are being taken over. One thing I get a lot of is emails and messages saying, I've just got this shop, and it's no different to 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, the flow is the same. Nothing's actually changed. So one thing I hear a lot of is someone will say to me, what shop's saying out there? Some are saying it's good and some are saying it's bad. Nothing's changed. Genuinely. There was that blip over COVID. Obviously, there was COVID. And then afterwards, it's gone back to what it was before. People have just said the same thing. And I can only think of 2 shops in recent times that have closed. 2 shops.
How much are shops selling for, though? That's the thing. Top end, good shops are going for. There's a lot of shops that are.
Oh, absolutely.
But
again,
cheap.
that's always been the case. I do think that the numbers were different before, but they were also not realistic. When you were talking to agents and some people were getting 45,000, 1,000. That was based on turnover only. We know why. Yeah. So now that I think, is there going to be a reset? Probably. Why are people getting out of the industry? Is it because the government putting the squeeze on things? Could be. Yeah. Or is it because they're not very good? Or is it because they're 50, 60, 70 and can't be asked to do it no more? And I do not blame them if they're retiring. Well done to you if you're retiring. I'd probably wait a couple of years, try to get more money out of my business, hang on a bit more, maybe do less hours or something. But now, obviously shops are selling for less, but they are not closing en masse. If they were, all the wholesalers that I supply and that you know of would be crying, and they're not. And I talk to them every week because we supply them, and they're saying it's tough and volumes are down. They're saying that, but they are not saying that shops are closing, not at the rate that have been speculated over the years.
But like I say, I think businesses have got their own life and they'll do anything to survive. But if you look at what's down the pipeline, look at this year, you've got insurance companies insisting on hardwired fire alarms, which is an expense. It'll end up as monitored fire alarms. It'll end up as fire
But this is where
systems.
Surely this is where you guys kick back.
We are doing, but instead of these companies lobbying government, they've lobbied insurance companies. So the suppliers have spoken to the insurance company and said, we can provide this product. You should insist that all your all the businesses you insure have these fitted. And I think that's what's gone on behind the scenes. So we raise it with ministers. We raised it about insurance companies not paying out if somebody has a fire.
But if we use the example of oil traps, we know, based on sort of stuff you've said online, it's, we better start doing this. Whereas really your tone there should be kicking it back to the water company saying, prove we need to do this. And I think that's where associations come in and fight hard. You know, like, I know these are big companies, but look at British Tobacco, food associations, all of this. They fight back at government and basically, or whoever it is that's lobbying for this, and say,
I think within a tobacco company, they've got one product, which is tobacco, which is the cause of the problem. I think if you have a grease trap fitted in your business, you see how much grease it does collect. You can see where it causes a problem. But we're not the only businesses that are contributing towards that. I've seen local takeaways pouring oil down the surface water drain.
And I can guarantee you, like, no chippy I know does that. Like, and we've been developing a product that actually eats away fat and starches and neutralises it by the time it even gets to the main drain. You do this once a week. Someone you know that I know very well is testing it for me at the moment. He had impeccable drains before. And why? Because the amount of water that's going through those sinks, and he doesn't even wash up that much, to be fair, but he has a process that once a week his drains are being cleaned. Just the other day...
It's not so much about that one shop, and I think I know what you're talking about. But I think if I'm right, that shop's on the top of a hill. So there's a lot of inertia there. But further down the line, there is going to be an issue. What I'm
saying is, even the shop I was brought up in, like my own shop, my dad's shop, shall I say, not my own shop, the shop I was brought up in, the amount of water going down those drains, we never had a blockage, ever. And
it's not about your blockage. If you talk to them, it's not about your blockages.
But this is where there's got to be kickback to say, you prove we need these grease traps. You prove we should be paying £1,000, £2,000, £3,000. It's your job to prove. But whereas what some people have taken issue with, Andrew, is where you say we should do it anyway just to be good citizens. Because then if you apply that logic, then you will automatically put the fire suppression, which, to be fair, some people say we should have anyway. Fire suppression is probably more important than having a new range to some degree, because you can have whatever you want underneath that fire suppression. If you've got fire suppression, if you've got a 50-year-old Mallinsons, and not to knock a Mallinsons, by the way, but if you've got a 50-year-old range, whatever's under that fire suppression is going to protect you. Whereas it's probably more important than a newer range to some degree. But the grease traps, some people take issue with.
I don't think I ever said to fit one because you're a good citizen. I've said the water companies have legislation where they can force you to fit it, so just have it in your budgets. You know, but the line, you're likely to get it.
But I think this is where we should be fighting that and saying, prove it. And
I have done as well. I've been in meetings with minister, his name was, I forget his first name now, but it was Dunn, and he was involved in the Water Act and Environmental Act. So we had meetings online. The water companies were there as well. And I also said the water companies are saying, right, it costs us 180 million a year and 90 million a year. I said, why don't you put half of that into subsidising grease traps for businesses? And then that makes it affordable for small businesses, and we can get it. If it's that big a problem for you, why don't you go that route? But I can't tell everybody every meeting I have and what goes on.
But I think that goes back to, I think you should somehow. I think you should be making notes, and I know you're a busy guy, but you should be making notes and let somebody else write it up and say, Andrew was in this meeting. There's the points. Not saying tell everything. We're not saying tell them what sandwich you had, but put some points there to say, here's what Andrew raised. Because a lot of people will cynically say, what does he do at these meetings? He never tells us. And
well, that's one thing that we will be working on, and it's one thing that we've increased in recent. I've not had a few meetings for a few weeks anyway, because we've just had board meetings and AGM. But that's one thing. I totally accept that. But people have to understand that I'm not paid to do the job.
And
that meeting that we're talking about was during COVID, so there's quite a lot going on, and I end up involved with it.
A bit of pushback, global pushback to this with volunteers. I do think that you guys say this so no one can push back. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, don't say it then, I think. Because I get your volunteers, but you don't need to keep saying it, because it does feel like you say it when there's a challenge. And actually, I wouldn't say it if that's the case, because I do think people don't like hearing that. I think, genuinely, I speak to a lot of people and they say, here we go again about the volunteers thing. It does become a reason for people not to judge you. And actually, we should all judge each other, like, not in a bitchy way. I mean, a professional way. Like, constructive criticism really pushes us all to do better.
But it's a time thing. That's the thing. And I've taken, as I say, I've got my girlfriend in Leeds, which for a few years, obviously with COVID, there wasn't those opportunities, and I have to fit Diane in as well, which
No,
which
no,
does
I'm
put
not
more
telling.
time.
No, I'm not telling you. I'm not. No,
No. But what I'm saying is, it's all time constraints. There's not always that time to fit it in. Sometimes, if I'm in London, I might have 3 or 4 meetings in a day, and I haven't got a PA that's sat at the side of me to type it. And if I'm in recent times with trains not running, a lot of the time I'm driving, so I've not got the time on the train to type it up as well.
I just feel like then, if that's the case, if it's a weakness within the system, is there any leeway to change this, to say people that work for the NFFF, like you and others, get paid? Then
I wouldn't. I mean, I have been offered that in the past, and I wouldn't like to change that dynamic. But I do think there's room. We used to have a general secretary, and I do think there's room to bring somebody in. I think we've probably got a bit of housekeeping to do ourselves and restructuring, and then that's something that we would certainly look at. But I wouldn't want to take that position on, because that's not the reason I do it. And that's when we say we're volunteers, it's basically saying, look, we're trying to do it for the good of the industry. It's not about deflecting criticism. Because
no, but if I gave
there
up,
to be shot at.
But the problem is, to some degree, is that with that sort of mentality, and I'm not suggesting this is true, but it could be true, is that if someone is genuinely poor, not poor as in financially, I mean poor at their job, but we say, oh, but they give up their time, nobody else gives up their time, we're sort of stuck with the shit end of the stick, aren't we, if that is the case? And I don't want that to be the case. I'd rather say, you know what, this person's getting paid X amount of time, at least he's getting an hourly rate that covers someone covering him in his business, or her. Then at least then, if you choose to volunteer your time, your costs are covered. There is no excuse for people to be crap, or even that excuse of saying we do give up our time, because I do understand that point. But at the same time, people want accountability. They want to know that, what's being done and what's being said. And if you are going to a meeting with a water board, and we've seen what a shit show water boards have been doing lately, and then to say, oh well, chip shops need to put grease traps, when these guys have been tipping water in streams, polluted water in streams. We're not the problem, and that's the fight back that we should be hearing from our association.
I spoke at the European Fog Summit in Liverpool probably 2.5 years ago, and that's one of the things I said from the stage. As a business owner, you're getting told you have to comply with this, you have to comply with that, but I think you need to get your own house in order first. So it has been said, but again, that's not something unless people watch the recording, which I don't know if it was even available, people aren't going to know that. And it's, as I say, it's just basically resources. We are resource poor, but what we can do is, if anybody wants to get involved, they can get involved. And, if people want to try and make a difference to the industry that we all love, the door's
I think
open.
you probably need to, in my opinion, what's probably changed from like what I see is that I know a few people that have joined the board and left the board. What you probably need to do is say, here's what we expect of you. A minimum term requirement. We need you to stay for at least a year or 2 years. We need you to do this, this, and this. You need to understand you can't enter the awards because you'll know too many things. We expect X amount of hours a week, if possible, 10 hours. Whatever you're giving, we need it. And also there's going to be some reporting. We're going to be checking in with you to make sure X, Y, Z got done. But when you sort of just take someone on thinking, I hope they do well, I know them, they're all right, they're nice people. And I'm sure people are nice. That's
not how it works, though. We do that. They've got. It might have been not during COVID. I think some of the people you talked to were probably during COVID and came and went. But we do have that. We do have a code of conduct. We do have set out what's expected. The problem's been just policing that, because there's been so many things going on the last few years, and then obviously taking the awards on as well did put more pressure on, and it turned into a bigger job than we expected. But it's important. It's there.
At the beginning of you taking on the awards, one concern I had, and I was verbal about it, because I am mostly always, and I've told you this, is do you run the risk of becoming the awards people? It feels like now we're on, is it our third year going into the awards?
Yeah, it's third season.
Third season. It does feel like that is happening. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's something that we were conscious of, and it doesn't help that we have lost a couple of board members. As I say, it's a big process. It takes a lot of time, and negotiating with sponsors and the to and fro in there. It does take a lot of time. So what we're trying to do now is set it up so that we've got overall sight of it, but we're not doing the day-to-day running of it, and we can focus on NFFF stuff, because I've still been trying to do it, but some of the board have, you know what it's like, everyone's got busier, everyone's got less time now than they had before. People that have got fish and chip businesses, there seem to be more challenges thrown at you, and you're forever dealing with this, that, and the other. And I think board members have found it difficult to find time to attend things. And if I'm honest, I've ended up doing a lot of the meetings, and that we're trying to share. That's why Stuart Devine, this came from, I got contact from Will Beckett from Hawksmoor, and I put him in touch with Stuart because it was a restaurant-based thing, and Stuart's been running on that side of thing and attending the meetings on the NFFF behalf. And the more of that we can do, the better, and certainly the better for me, because it's a very busy role. But yeah, that was one of my fears, and we do work hard, but it's probably the community. I've always said this: it's the communication to members that has probably been the bit that's been missing, and it's something that's so difficult to fit in. I'm just saying that just that time-wise, it's so difficult to put that together.
Yeah.
So we're doing our best to improve that communication. And the new website will certainly help that, but members will start seeing it before.
Yeah, but members don't. Look, we send out a lot of emails. We do a lot of things, but what people really truly like is someone picking up the phone and saying, "How's it going? Everything all right?"
We'll be doing that as well. Everybody that joins.
But if you're so resource poor, how do you do all these things? And you still do a lot yourself. It was 5 years ago and 11 months and 3 weeks. It was this is nearly when this goes out. It'll probably be the anniversary of our first episode together. And you said to me, not in clear words. I went back and I've got transcripts of every single one. You sort of said, "I'm not going to do this forever." And we're nearly 6 years down the line, and here you are still. I'm not wishing you leave, but what's the plan there? Like, you're doing more than you ever did. Like, and you've got people that have left, and we don't know who's replacing them yet. And you're doing more than you ever did. So when does someone else step in and become president?
Well, that's what I'm trying to nurture. I was obviously Josette's circumstances changed, but I thought Josette might step up. It'd be nice to have a female president, not because they're female, but because I think the industry, a lot of the strong operators in the industry, or a lot of the strong businesses do have a strong female in them as well. And I think 110 years, 111 years of existence, it should have happened by now,
Yeah, but again, I don't care for all this. I just want the best person to do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I thought Josette might have done it, but her circumstances have changed, and she's become a grandmother, and priorities change. But
why is it?
We do look at succession planning, but
why is it then that? And explain to me why. Why is it we can't have? You said there was a general secretary. Why is it we can't have a head of the organisation that's general secretary, and then all the other board directors or what they're called regional directors essentially are like non-executive directors, and they all push that person to do their bloody job. Then everyone else is a string to the bow. Why can't we do that? What's wrong with this industry or the setup that you have there that eliminates that type of thinking?
Again, it's resources. It's the cost of bringing that person.
But you did say that there was probably a place where you could have a general secretary. So
yeah, further down the line, but we've got to work towards that, and that's we're not quite at that point. We had Denise, who was fantastic, but we've had office managers that have been brought in since with a view to the structure, and it's just not worked out. We are a strange organisation. It is a different business environment to a lot, and there's a lot of heritage and there's a lot of rules to work with, which again we want to rewrite the rules because the organisation needs modernising, but it all takes time. And now we've got the awards sort of under control, and we've got procedures in place, and the more manageable. We've got the time to focus on that, and I think that's the next stage. The awards weren't something that we went out to get, but I always thought we probably should run them, but we didn't go out to get them, and they arrived a lot quicker than I thought they would. So. But it's important that they're there. So that's if we didn't do, and somebody else would try and occupy that space, which they do anyway. But it's that raising standards that they provide that we have to take on. So it has been a challenge for us on the back of COVID and everything else. It has been a challenging time.
How do you go about raising the standards for the 98% of people that don't engage with the awards and the quality award? Because that is a huge amount of people in this industry that don't engage in those things. How do you then support them, or even? Because some of those are still members. A portion of that 98% are still members. But if they're not, you're not lifting standards if they're not entering the quality award and they're not entering the awards, are you?
Well, it does filter down, but we do still work for members that aren't entering the awards. A lot of the work we're doing is a lot of the media stuff, we're trying to counteract. There's quite a lot of stories that never come off because we do say, look, hang on, stories about where's the cheapest fish and chips, which in my opinion shouldn't be encouraged. It's not about, the crack. I mean, somebody doing fish and chips that cheap, there's usually a reason why. So those kind of stories we do counteract. The work we do talking to government and talking to other organisations, to spare with me a phone call, just representing them in different forums. We're working for everybody, but the standard side does filter down because look at sustainability. That before we took the awards on, MSC and sustainability in general was a main focus of the awards, and the rest of the industry, not all of them, but it did sort of steer the industry that direction. We've broadened that to more environmental issues because waste and energy procurement and things like that are going to become, when energy supply is going to be more of an issue in the future, and we want businesses to focus on that as well.
Yeah, but other than telling people to, I don't know, update their frying range or put LED lighting, you're not going to make them. What else can you do to make them more?
Well, it makes them creative, doesn't it? So people will be creative and think about it, and it just makes people think that direction, and that hopefully will permeate down.
If I'm honest, if the government choices don't make them do that, you're not going to make them do that. The fact is, electric and gas is going to be dearer than it's ever been. And if that doesn't motivate them to change a frying range, for argument's sake, which is the biggest guzzler in the business, because it is, they're not going to, are they? They're not going to change. Realistically, I'm just thinking about myself too. If I'm not going to listen to you, Andrew, I don't mean this in a mean way, but I'm not going to listen to you if I haven't already thought to myself, bloody hell. Is that how much my gas and electric was this month? Oh, I better work on that. Because that's the motivator, isn't it? It's that bill at the end of the month.
It is, but if you can get ahead of the curve, we didn't wait till.
But we're not ahead of the curve, are we?
No, we're not. We're starting. No, but
we're past
not
the
with
curve,
gas prices.
Yeah.
But again, that's external.
Yeah.
We know what's gone on there with Ukraine and Russia, and that's had a big impact on that. But we can be ahead of the curve on some of the other things, or at least trying to catch it up.
What's happened with MSC,
aspects.
though? Because you mentioned them. What happened there? Because you guys were doing their accreditation or whatever, and that post-COVID has just disappeared.
Yeah, well, the group that we had, which was run by the Rock Group, was put on hold just so we can get... Basically, we've been pushing MSC to try and change and make it less... paperwork heavy and audit heavy at the shop end. To take the group on, we've got to, this is what MSC have told us, we've got to visit every site ourselves to do a pre-audit before the auditor comes over and picks a handful of sites to do an audit on. And the cost of that, and I don't think it's the most environmentally sound thing, sending people around. But we've found a way around that, but would the cost be prohibitive? Can somebody else offer it instead of us? Maybe.
But you guys,
so we're exploring that route as well.
I've had Lauren on the podcast loads of times, and I've had from MSC, if anyone doesn't know that. And then we've done loads of articles with MSC, and from what I understand, you guys have signed into an agreement, so it should happen. This should just be normal, shouldn't it? As in, it should happen. If someone wants an audit, they should ring you and say, "Hey, I'd like an audit."
We're not. That's it. We've got to get the group real life. We've got to get an audit done. And it isn't as straightforward as we were first told, because we've got these. At the moment, we'd start off with a small group of 40. Well, we'd have to visit those 40 shops. And again, is that the
but surely
best
those
use of our
shops,
time?
surely those shops would pay for that if they want to be MSC certified. They would pay for that. There'd be a fee for that.
Well, they wouldn't pay for my time to be away from my business, and it's meant to be me at the time. It was myself and Josette that would end up doing it. So that'd be 20 each. If I've got 2 weeks away from my business, I'm spending it on the beach. I'm not spending it driving around and doing audits. In my opinion, could be done remotely.
I feel like this is one of those conversations that should have been had before you signed an agreement. You should have probably...
We did. And when Craig Moore was on the board, we had many conversations. And I just think it's a system that's adapted from, say, a supermarket chain that's trying to fit independence.
But I've challenged them many times, and we've had lots of challenging conversations, and I don't think it's the easiest structure in the world. But if that is their structure, that they need a physical site for the first one, and then it can be however not judged, but internally inputted afterwards by email or whatever afterwards, then surely that is just presented to the customer as, hey, this is the way it is. It costs £150 for this audit because it's our time or somebody's time, and I'm guessing the number. I'm just making up a number. So yeah, I'd like, would you like to proceed? Yes or no?
We have got a solution for it, but we have to still then weigh up whether the office time that it'll take is going to be worth it for such a small amount.
Well, I guess
of
so.
shops
The question
that
is,
could probably get it elsewhere. That's the point.
well, the question is then: does the NFFF either say go elsewhere or someone else do a deal with somebody else, and do you believe it enough to do it? Because I think
I believe in it. But that's a conversation for us to have with MSC rather than me having it with
that
you.
makes sense.
But
I only mentioned it because you mentioned it. Like, you mentioned MSC. So, but no, I just thought, seeing as you mentioned it, let's give listeners a guide into what's going on there, because that was a heavy thing before. Like, there was a big association between MSC and NFFF before, and that has
and the awards as well.
Yeah, and obviously,
but we believe in it, and it's a great tool to answer any criticism from media or externally, but as I say, it's got to stack up, and I still think they've probably not adapted as they should have done. We've been saying there's an issue with it for so long, and it's not changed. And
I guess their argument would be, for argument's sake, and I'm just thinking, like, put my shoe in the other camp for a moment, is that that's a you problem, not a them problem. Because if that's always been the case, then they would argue that. Now, I think maybe I'd need to get someone from MSC on at some point anyway, because it has been a few years, and to see what they say. But ideally, yeah, I just thought, would you mentioned it, so I thought we'd go down that rabbit hole and see what, because listeners will think, because again, I get afterwards, once one of these are done, it's like, he mentioned it, but you never followed up on it. And so it's just trying to follow up on things.
Well, we 100% support the scheme, but we do think it needs to change, and we've always thought that. And if your customers are telling you there's a big issue with it, if you're running a shop or if you're running your business, you'd start to listen to it at some point.
But I guess this is how accreditation works. If they need it to be face-to-face for the first one, and then a certain set of parameters need to be achieved in order for them to pass that, then that is just the way it goes, surely. Like, would that be any different to, I'm trying to think, like, if a fish supply was audited? Like, imagine, and I think this is where imagine if someone said, I got MSC, but nobody came to audit and nobody came to see anything I'm doing physically. No one came to check my receipts. You could see how people would be like, well, what did they check?
But how many shops would pay? It could cost £1,000, depending on how many people want to do it, because the auditor's fees are quite high, which... Then,
well, I guess this is where. But I guess this is where you need to be talking to those shops and saying.
Well, that's what we're doing. Again, quite often in the podcast, you say you should be doing this. Well, we are doing this, but it's not something.
No, because I've not heard from anyone from MSC, as in from MSC themselves. They've never complained about anything, but I've never heard from anyone who uses MSC, as in from our industry, that have had a call yet about this. They seem completely in the dark,
No. We've had responses, and they know we're doing something behind the scenes. Whether we'll be doing it or we'll partner with somebody to do it, I don't know what the solution is just yet.
Yeah.
But I do believe in MSC. I do believe we need some sort of sustainability accreditation, because it does answer a lot of questions. But I just think that it could be done at the supply side and make life a lot easier. There might be a better way of doing it, and a bit of flexibility would help us.
But I do think this whole visit on site thing, I mentioned it in the last episode that we did. I think that I really see a place where we need on-site visits again. I think COVID's well behind us. Anything we do from our business, with any accreditation, it's done face-to-face on-site. Nothing's done by Zoom. And I think, and I'm pointing directly at the quality accreditation, that for me, you need to... I strongly believe this, and I think that at the moment, no visit, you don't see a fraction of what's actually going on. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And that's my opinion, obviously. I'm being completely honest with you about my opinion, shall I say. Yeah. And I think that, we're building a factory. Anybody that listens to this, we're already thinking about all the accreditation we're doing, when they're going to come around, what they're going to look at. It's a physical thing. Imagine if I said to you, Tesco passed its BRC accreditation, but they had no spot checks. You'd be like, well, that's a fucking joke. Whereas if I say to you it was done by Zoom, that's a joke. But yet this is what we're doing in our industry.
We have plans on this as well, and I accept you do see a lot on a Zoom. Trust me, and you'd be surprised what you see, because I think people are a little bit more relaxed when they're on a Zoom.
Well, they're relaxed because they're not being tested as much.
No. They feel a bit more that they've not got somebody coming in, so they're a little bit blasé about it. It's not that they just feel at home. And you do see a lot of things that you might not see. You know what it's going to be like. If you know you've got an inspection coming in the next couple of weeks, you'll make sure everything's on top. But also, the cost of it as well has to be charged back. So the only time the QA, when it was under sea fishing remit, was when they charged £50 or something, and they.
Oh, it's been a struggle for whoever's had it. I don't want to make out that this is a you problem,
But it's important it's there, and it was always the standard that the awards were judged on. So we've kept it alive, and that's basically what we did during COVID. And we accept there's got to be room for change, or there's room for a physical audit as well, but it will come at a cost, and there will be shops that will pay it.
So why not say? So I'm not trying to write your policy here, but why not say it's an unannounced visit? The quality award will be an unannounced visit. We'll choose when.
Watch this space. That's all I'll say to you. We have conversation, but it's like me quizzing you on your business. There's certain things that are not fully developed yet that I won't talk about, and I'm here. But watch this space. We have got some plans.
What's going on? All right, so we'll move on. What's going on with the training school? Go on. What's going on with that?
The training, we did lose David. We've had quite a time, and I think David will tell you this, that there wasn't a lot of people coming into the industry, that a lot of them just wanted a certificate rather than getting the actual training and improving the skills. And I think that's one of the motivations behind David leaving. Again, we've got plans there, and we think we probably need to modernise the training school. We're looking at investing in it, or we might even move at some point. But for now, I think there's more of a need for training going forward. We need to offer that provision. We've got some plans for online training as well, as I hinted at with the website. So again, it's quite commercially sensitive, but because we're not quite there yet. But watch this space. We've got some plans.
David's a really good trainer. I've never actually been taught by him; just been told by people that have. And obviously, he's a very unoptimistic person. And actually, he wouldn't tell me anything, to be honest. He's just not that type of person. He said he wouldn't. I could ask him now and he'd say nothing, because he's very private about whatever he's done. He's not. But it does look like it's sort of floundering at the minute. And just looking at it from the outside in, and you think, I was reading see, you've got two schools of thought here. So I read a tweet by somebody the other day, and they said, when a department's struggling, you don't give it more money, you cut it off. And I do wonder, is that what happens here, or do you actually give it more emphasis and more investment? But there's no teachers at the moment, is there? And so it is sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place at the moment.
Yeah, wait till the new year. That's all I can say. We've got plans.
But I do think, I know you don't like to communicate negative stories. I get that. I know. No. I mean, in general, you NFFF don't communicate a lot anyway, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Just based on this conversation, so you're not going to use that time to promote negative things either. But I do think saying to people, "Oh, watch this space," I think they probably think a bit, "Here we go again." Do you get what I mean? I'm just trying to give a bit of balance there. They'll probably think, "Oh, well, we've been waiting for the website for a year." If you're Raphael Chandler, so I'm just trying to give it some.
Training's probably not been a priority in the last quarter or last half of last year. We did post-COVID and then cost of living. Training was quieter, and then David left. And during COVID, David was quite active. I mean, we lost quite a lot of our training network, but that we have started to rebuild.
Yeah,
we're going to change. We're going to change the way training's delivered.
I don't want you sitting here thinking, "Oh, it's Stelios just fucking laying into me." The fact, I do think we should hold everyone to account that is presenting this industry, including me, including you, or the organisation. I take shit off everyone. I don't care. It's a conversation at the end of the day. So I'm not trying to stitch you up here. I'm just trying to have a conversation about these difficulties, because I think a lot of people see that, for example, the ball is gone. You mentioned that in the last the recording that never made it out. That's likely never going to come back. The magazine's gone. It's likely not going to come back. It will come back in its digital form, but the content's not going to be the same. It's just not. You haven't got a person dedicated to writing content. So then, if worst case scenario, and if you've got to do it, you've got to do it. Don't worry about what I give what I say. But if the training falls by the wayside, it almost looks a bit like it's been asset stripped. Like a lot of things that the NFFF did have been asset stripped. Like, and anyone like that was a member 10 years ago are not getting the same benefits as what they would have 10 years ago.
The magazine was a conscious decision because, one, we were getting a lot of bounce backs. Two, it's very expensive and not the right choice for the environment to be sending a magazine out that's then coming back.
But...
No, let me finish. But that was a conscious decision. But I do get that people like the physical magazine. Next year will be the centenary of the Fish Friers Review, so hopefully we can get a magazine out.
I do think this.
We talked about a few areas. The ball, we didn't want to be going to suppliers and saying we'll put a ball on, and asking them to support that, and then going to them and asking them to support the awards. And we thought we're taking the awards on.
Why does it have to be supplier funded? Why can't it be member funded? Why can't they just pay the ticket price? Like, it was a great event, so why not? Like,
the cost of it is and organise it is a very expensive thing to put an event on. So
I genuinely think it's missed. I think you did a great job.
I agree.
You did a grand job. It was always a good night. I came to like 3 or 4 of them before the 3 or 4 last ones before they'd finished, and I think it's great for the people that don't want to enter awards for whatever reason. They're just not interested. That's not a thing they want to do, and because when you're at the awards, it's very award focused. It's hard not to get into the hype of awards because it is award focused, and that's the benefit of it being good for the awards. But for someone who just doesn't want to enter the awards, doesn't want to spend, whatever it is to go to that, they'd rather go to something in Leeds or Manchester or whatever and have a good night out, maybe pair it back with the AGM because, I know that's a Zoom thing now, but make it a physical thing and Zoom maybe. Because if they're at the event, you'd hope they turn up for that. You'd hope, And I know what people are like. We've spoke about apathy a billion times. But if there's something to link it to, does that get them into the meeting? Do you get what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit hopeful. Maybe I am, But and also this argument about environment, I think it's worsened all services. I'm telling you now. Like, like if I said, well, I don't go out to see shops anymore because of the environment and I don't pick up a shop. It's because I said the environment. I think we're now at the point where if someone has to drive somewhere, they are not killing the planet just by going and doing a QA audit, And if a magazine's being sent out, it's not your job to worry about efficiency. It's Royal Mail's job to worry about efficiency. You do,
It's more the you look at 8,000 magazines going out. The time to put that magazine together. But if you look at Fry magazine, they've stopped producing a magazine. It's a brochure with QR codes linking to online stories. It's changing.
I don't know how. And I'd love to talk to Reese about that because I genuinely don't know how well that's doing. I'd like to maybe delve into that with him and also Austin, who obviously does still produce a magazine. But I do think I'm just trying to say to you, like, you can understand how people probably look at what they used to get and now think what they don't get. And then, if you pair that with the lack of communication that has been discussed here, I'm not trying to add a Trojan horse here. I'm just trying to discuss what we've had. They probably feel like everything's been shelled out a bit. And I understand what you're saying, that costs and resources all matter. But to a member, it puts them in a very difficult position. One argument I had with somebody recently is that somebody said to me that they weren't happy with the service they were receiving from the NFFF. I showed it to somebody else who defended the NFFF, and that's fine, obviously. And this person said, well, has that person volunteered their time? Have they done this? Have they done that? And I was like, well, it's not their job to.
But have they told us? That's the other thing.
But, like, if they're not even telling their local MP how annoyed they are, if they're not telling everything else that's peeing them off, what's peeing them off, like in any situation, a lot of the time, I wake up sometimes and once a week I'll go look at our emails and at our reviews on our website, and I'll see a negative review, and it's actually a physical complaint that matters. It's time sensitive. And I'll be like, why you put that there? It was 14 days ago. I can't help you now. And I'll ring them and say, look, we're sorting it out. But if you're thinking, why didn't you find out? It's because you put it in the wrong place. You should have just emailed us. So I think people don't think like that. Like, and actually telling you doesn't actually help, because they're not going to get the answer they want either. Everybody wants what they want. Yeah, where if they're waiting for you to come back and say, well, the board said this and we've got a policy for that. People want what they want. So, you know...
We do go out to members and we do ask, what services would you want? What would you like to see for your membership? And you do get very little back. And we're looking at different ways to reach members. We've got plans in place, and you'll start seeing, or members will start seeing a difference. We've just had the AGM, so we were waiting. We had a board meeting on Monday. So
for me, what I think the easiest way, the cheapest way, is to have one person who calls a shop, 5-minute call twice a year. It's the most logical way to do it. No other system is going to fix that personal touch.
You're
going to tell me, watch this space, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying. Well, we've just had our AGM. We've got the new board in place. Ryan's joined us. John's still on the board. We've got a CRM system which is underutilized, so we want to develop that so that it alerts us to certain touch points in the year. And we've got plans in place. So as I say, we are working on this, and people will start to see a difference sooner rather than later. I think they'll start seeing a difference straight away. Maybe it depends when your membership's due, what stage you're at, and but you'll start seeing more contact.
I just worry. That's all. Look, if anyone's listening to this thinking Stelios is being hard, or hard on Andrew even, it's genuinely because I am a critic, because I want to see better. Like, genuinely, I've always wanted better for this industry. I'll never stop punching that horn. I genuinely think we all deserve better. But actually, someone said to me, people get what they deserve, so they should also, get involved and give you feedback and tell you what annoys them or doesn't annoy them, or what they'd like to see, or if they've got any concerns, let you know. Yeah,
I'm open to it, and I am open to it, and I know you've got the same passion for the industry as I have. I know you really care about it, and we both want the same thing. We might have banged heads a few times over the years, but we all want the same. We get on. I think, we'd like to see a stronger fish and chip industry, and hopefully I can do my little bit. We'll see what I can judge it when I do finally leave. So whenever that may be.
In the recording that never made it, we briefly touched on membership, and I mentioned that I watched this video, and I can't remember it's on video. Who says video now? But I watched the film on this documentary on Netflix, and they were talking about how in the post-war everyone was. I'm in, whether it's a bowling club, I'm in a Rotary club, everyone was in a club of something, a union, and I think now it's going for a natural cycle of waning off a bit, and they did say it's a natural thing; it will come around again. How are you guys seeing numbers year on year, membership numbers?
Well, they were pretty static for quite a while. We have seen a slow drop now, I think I'd say. There are some members starting to fall off. We are getting new members joining as well, but there's probably slightly negative each month. But I think the responses we're getting from people, they just can't afford it. It's an easy thing for that to be something they drop. Our job is to make sure it's something that they can't afford not to have, which is what we're working on at the moment. And we've been going through this process for the last 12 months, and we do know we've got to restructure the organisation and put a store out for the future, because the needs of the industry has changed, and the demographic of the industry has changed. What people are looking for. All member associations are finding the same thing. And I know people are just trying to start associations out. And
how many members have you got now,
incredibly
Andrew?
Challenging. We've got round about 1,000.
Okay, that's great. I think that's a great. I think that's a great number. I do. And if it was lower, it's not the end of the world. It would be great if it was higher, obviously. But I just think that, if something could make others get on board, and I do think this regular keeping in touch with people, surveys are great. Like you said, people hardly get the emails; they just hardly do. And we send out emails every week, and 40% of them end up in junk box, and then people say, I never saw that offer. Well, I'm sorry, can't do anything about that. So, and that'll be the same with you. There's always going to be a drop off, but I do think if someone's at the end of that phone, how are you doing, John? Are you all right? What can we be doing? And then they build a report, and that gets sent to the directors. And I'm not telling you guys, I wish I could get more involved with the NFFF, but I can't because I'm an associate member. And, that's why one of the reasons why I'm not allowed on the AGM, for argument's sake. And I do think maybe if that was something that changed, but I wonder if, and we've touched on it in the last one, is this structure the way that it is at the moment? Is it holding you back? Do you need to get rid of the federation bit, which is the federated amount of all these little organisations, and just be, I don't know, National Fish and Chip Shop Union? I don't know. I'm just trying to think something that gives you a new mandate, because at the moment it just seems like all these old bylaws or whatever are just choking you to death. They really do.
Earlier on, you were saying that you'd be worried about associate members getting involved in it. So
no, it's true. No, it's true. That's my personal thing. I'd like to help more, but I still believe in the fact that I would have a bias. I would, because I'm a normal human. I'm not hanging myself here. The truth is, I have a bias because everyone has a bias, But I would love to help more if I could, but I can't anyway, But the point is that it feels like ideas are limited, and resources are limited, finances are limited, and then you've got all these bylaws. I don't know if they're called bylaws, but these things that are choking. Wouldn't you just rather be able to say, we've had a business meeting with the directors and here's our plan? Like, we don't need to vote on it at the AGM and do this and do that. Here's our plan, we're moving in this direction now. Wouldn't that be liberating to some degree?
It certainly would. The AGM does slow some decision making down, but not all decision making down. And what we are trying to, but it's a huge job to modernise. I mean, there's rules going back to 110 years, but it's something that we've modernised gradually. But I think we're going to do a root and branch reform of that and try and clear it up. We spoke to the accountants; they're putting us in touch with a specialist that'll help us achieve that. So that's again is something that I think is a priority. But we are looking at maybe involved in the supply side in some projects, because I do think they've got a lot to offer. They've got a vested interest in fish and chips doing well. They've got a vested interest in standards increasing, and they've got a vested interest in promoting fish and chips. So we've had a few conversations with other associations within the supply side, and also with a couple of suppliers, and I'm exploring that. And that, who knows where we're going to end up? We might end up as an association of fish and chips. That it might go that route. There might be fewer independent owners and a lot more chains, or a few big chains develop, and nobody really knows the direction of travel. We think it might go that way, so we've got to explore everything. But I think it's important you've got a body there that represents the independent fish and chip shops or the fish and chip industry, because there's no other organisation that can do it the same way we can. And it will change, and it should change, and we should be held accountable. I totally agree with you. But we are looking to the future, and you can probably tell by, I know I've said a lot of watch this space and it's coming soon. We really have had a lot of conversations over the last 12 months, certainly over the last 3 months heading up to the AGM, about how we're going to make these changes. And communications, we've never really used text messages, and I think we've got to use, it's a bit like your customers, you've got to offer every option from ordering nowadays, because some people don't want to talk to anyone, they want to order online and just pick it up. Some want to come in for a conversation because they're the only people that you've spoken to, and I think it's the same with members. Not everybody wants a phone call, so that one you keep brief, but you can reach them a different way.
If I can give you one piece of advice, Andrew, genuinely, is within a trade organisation like this, you want more personal, less impersonal. Do not go down, I'm giving you my opinion, do not go down the route of doing text messages. That is genuinely invading people's personal space. Like I know, because I've seen people that have enacted it. Look at NFU. What's the one thing they've got other than loads of money? They literally talk to their members throughout all their services on the phone in the most traditional way possible. And
we do that as well, though.
But you're saying
not all.
You're saying.
But we're going to do that as well as text message. So if something new legislation or something new on the website, we'll alert people by email. We'll send as you said, not every email gets open, but they'll have the option to opt out, but we can send a text message. If they don't want text messages, then they can opt out of that. But me personally, I wouldn't want a phone call because I have enough phone calls.
No, but you do. But the average chip shop owner just gets his supplier calling him. And
umpteen people trying
well,
to sell
yeah, obviously
electric
those
gas.
guys, yeah, those guys,
and then customers,
but,
and then yeah.
You know what? If I got a call from Helen in the office, and I'm just using her as an example, and she said, "Hi, Stelios, how's it going?" "Oh, great, thanks." "Oh, everything all right? It's been 6 months since you've been a member. Like, do you need anything? Anything you want us to pass up the chain?" Like, that is not a phone call I'd be offended by at all. Now, if I got one of those 19 Eastern callers that call me to ask about my electric supply or the diesel thing on my car, whatever it is, like, yeah, I get it. I get your point. But, you know, I do think...
It's just having that option, and some people would prefer one over the other, so we'll give them that option, and just having different ways of reaching people. At least we can get some information out, because some of it is very important, and people say, well, I was never told that. Even when we were using snail mail, we could send 2 letters out, and they still say they've not seen it, because some people don't read the mail, and so you get people, you never told me about that, and we did, you know. And it's so I think you've just got to have all. I'm making the member area useful enough that people are visiting it often, because that way we can have legislation in there. I think one of our roles should be making sure that our members are kept up to date with the latest legislation all the time, and maybe issuing some certificate each year to say that we've done it. I don't know what shape or form. I've got a few ideas, but you know, I think that's important. That, you know, by visiting one of our members, you know that they know the latest legislation on employment welfare, or talk about grease trap, or whatever it may be. And I think that's a very important role for us. So
where do you see the next, you know, fast forward 5 years, what do we see? You know, like what's your hope?
Hopefully I'm not living in Leeds, but we'll see. If she has a way, I might end up there. I'd like to see a strong independent fishing. I really believe the independence and the variation of fish and chip shops out there is one of the industry's strengths. You only have to see on social media groups, you know, public-facing consumer groups, they've all got the favourite fish and chip shop, and they fall out about it. You know, even in the local town group here, it's like, such a shop's the best, and oh no, I prefer. You know, people do like one thing over another, and you know, we know that from our own customers and the complaints you get when it doesn't match another shop. So I really would like to see that independence, you know, strong industry, and I'd like to see. We talked about the fraud tightened up, and I think that's something that needs to happen for the industry to flourish in the future, because otherwise we're getting weakened all the time, we're undermined all the time, and that will end up with more chains, which ultimately might get bought out, and you know, some venture capitalist somewhere thinks fish and chips might be a good way, and it's getting easier to standardise things. We've got quality products.
Yeah, but chains aren't a bad thing. You know, we've got Chesterford Group, we've got Deep Blue. They're good. You know, they're good. They push forward. You know, in my opinion, they do push. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think the chains we've got are great, but I wouldn't like the industry to all amalgamate into one big chain suddenly in 20, 50 years' time. No, I like the independence of it, and I think it's something that makes us special. A bit like I've always said about boulangeries in France, and people would rather use those than a supermarket. And I think, you know, we need to make sure that we've got good independent operators that fulfil that role. And the danger is people, I know we've got them now, and we've got some standout shops there, but when they come up to retirement, they're good sites for a chain to snap up, and then ultimately somebody will see those chains as a good investment, and we could end up with some venture capitalist company that doesn't care about the industry and just, you know, it's just another cost copy. Or
on the upside, they're not going to come into this industry if they think it's on its arse and people are saying how bad the margins are. They're only going, so they're only going to go where there's loads of money. And but no, look, I just want to finish this off and say, look, I know that we don't always see eye to eye, but I respect you as a person, and you know, professionally, we won't always agree on things. It's impossible to. You can't always agree on everything professionally, and nor should we, because that's boring, to be honest. We need to be able to push through that. But I do respect the work you put in. I do, genuinely. And I just love to see the NFFF go on to that next stage now, really. And, you know, if anybody's listening to this and they want to get involved and help, they should. And I'd like to, but I can't. You know, and also, like, again, I do think strongly about the ethics of, you know, joining more with the supply side. I think you start to lose focus. Just like Neoda doesn't really think about customers. Neoda thinks about the supply side, you know?
Yeah.
So,
That's why we will never make a decision rashly, and it's something but we've got to explore everything, haven't we? That's it. You got to think these scenarios through.
Yeah, but they need more of you, is what the NFFF needs. Is more people that are willing to sort of step in the firing line from someone like me who has no skin in the game and doesn't get his fingers burnt because I can criticise everything. And it's true because I don't have any skin in the game. But genuinely, thanks for your time. Thank you for getting involved. Thank you for doing what you do. And is there anything we should have talked about that we shouldn't have?
Well, one of the things that's upcoming, I know we had D-Day last year, which coincided with National Fish and Chip Day. Bruno is the organiser. He's working on VE Day 80, which sadly yesterday the government decided they're not going to make a bank holiday, which would have been better for the event, but it should still be a good event. I know he's doing a beacon on the Thames, and it should grab a lot of attention. So he asked us how we could get the industry involved. So we've put a scheme together where shops can register, and I'll share the website with you. Register on the website. They can put the shop on an interactive map. And all we're asking is shops on that day offer a 10% discount on orders over, say, £50 to encourage parties to have fish and chip parties. And hopefully we can mark the role that fish and chips, farmers, fishermen played in World War II. And bring about victory in Europe, and so that's the thought behind that. So I'll share the website with you.
Well, this podcast will probably be out very soon, to be honest. It'll probably be out before the weekend. It's like a Wednesday. It'll be out fast. There's no editing to do, thanks to your computer working this time. So we will get it out as soon as possible. But like I was finishing, thanks for coming on. It's always good to have you on. And hopefully next time it's less stressful for you. But I think I'm always the type of person that's going to hold you to account, because that's what I do. And but you are allowed to push back. I've always said that.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered about that. So yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure, and have a good Christmas if I don't see you before.
I'll see you before. Yeah, I'll see you before. Yeah, I might even buy you a drink.
All right, great. I'll definitely hold you to that.
Right, mate. You be good.
All right, cheers, Stel. See you later.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Friers podcast with Andrew Crook. I enjoyed chatting to him. I know he probably thinks I'm a bit hard on him, but it's our job. Our job is to press these conversations. And, I do get a lot of people say to me afterwards, oh, well, you didn't push on this. And no doubt I didn't push on everything in this, because you do sort of forget when you're chatting. But I do love chatting to Andrew, actually. And like I said, we need to get him on a pod squad just to hear him talk normally, because, again, we don't really do that. So I think we need to make that happen. We'd love to hear your thoughts, what resonated with you in this episode. Join the Friers podcast discussion group on Facebook. Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and new episodes, offers and industry news. And don't forget, we now have a WhatsApp announcement group, which is now live. It's the easiest way to stay in the loop for podcast updates, special offers and more. The link is in the show notes, so make sure you join. And even if you don't, like I said before, even if you don't have it on loud, put it on mute. It's a good place just to go see what's been going on, because we do have some great Black Friday deals that are out this Friday only. So join our mailing list or our WhatsApp group to get the latest updates. And at Friers, we're here to help your business thrive with innovative products, valuable insights. So drop us a message anytime, because we'd love to hear what you're working on. Until next time, thank you for listening to this episode with Andrew Crook, and we'll see you in the next episode.